There are a lot of questions this time of year concerning when to turn out onto pastures, how quickly livestock should be rotated, and what effect these decisions will have on subsequent forage growth. Let's look first at when to turn out onto pastures.
Now, ideally, we would wait until forage has reached an average of 7 or 8 inches before turning livestock into the pasture. That's an average height. The pasture I'm in right now is about there. It's about an average of 8 inches. Obviously, some plants are going to be taller than others. Some species like Kentucky bluegrass or white clover are just never going to get that big. But it's an average. And how you would measure that average is go out throughout the pasture with your grazing stick and measure many different locations. And you're not going to ever really want to pull up the entire height of the grass and measure it. You're going to want to look at where the base of the forage mass is, where that kind of rests, and measure that. That's what we're looking at. Once we've reached that 8 inches in height, that tells us several things. The plant will be in a positive energy balance with full energy reserves. It tells us the root system is actively growing and exploring the soil. And then it also tells us that we've got adequate forage available for animals to be able to get a big mouthful when they come through and graze. When livestock graze short forage, and you've seen this, they work very hard for very little nutrition. Research has also shown that grazing pastures in early spring before they've reached that 8-inch mark can reduce total season yield by 25% or more. Okay, so if you're waiting until all your pastures are 7 or 8 inches tall before turnout, it's not going to be long until the grass is ahead of you, right? So don't you have to start grazing some of the fields earlier in order to manage the spring flush? Well, you can, but you may be reducing the regrowth capacity of those fields in a way that will affect it all year long. A wiser way to manage the spring flush would be to ask yourself how you can set aside a portion of your acreage to be harvested for hay or stockpiled for summer grazing in that August-September time period. Doing those things will help you extend your season later into the fall and winter and reduce your total hay costs for the year. So we're trying to be strategic about this from the very start.
Once you turn out onto pasture, how quickly should livestock be rotated? The rule of thumb is to try and leave at least 4 inches of residual plant height. Why 4 inches? Retaining 4 inches ensures a couple of things. First of all, it makes sure we leave the base of the plant intact. The stem bases are where energy is stored in several of our most important forage species like orchard grass, fescue, and red clover. Second, leaving 4 inches ensures that the plant retains enough leaf area to immediately begin photosynthesizing after it's grazed. That way it doesn't start pulling from stored energy reserves. Also, removing too much leaf area causes root growth to stop for a week or even longer. There are some forage species like Kentucky bluegrass and white clover that are a little more tolerant to close grazing, but for the most part we need to manage pastures based on orchard grass and fescue as our limiting factors. These ewes have been grazing this pasture for about a week. It may look taller than 4 inches, but if you actually measure it, it's right there. We know that rotating these animals off of here right now will retain the leaf area to allow quick regrowth and recovery. This particular pasture is grazed really uniformly. That's because of the high stock density, and hopefully we'll cover that in another video sometime. I'd like to leave you by showing a short time-lapse video put together by the University of Kentucky. It shows one plant clipped to 1 inch and one plant clipped to 4 inches. The time lapse shows the dramatic difference in regrowth in the week following clipping as a result of the leaf area left on each plant. Hopefully, this has helped bring to light some of the fundamental concepts that should guide your decision making with spring grazing. In summary, first, try to hold off on spring turnout until plants have established the leaf area and root growth to get a good start on the year, about 7 to 8 inches in height. Second, remove livestock so as to allow 4 inches of average plant residual in the pasture so that leaf area is retained to support rapid root and foliage regrowth.